Today, we're diving into a really fascinating argument. It takes one of the most famous lines in Scripture and connects it, well, directly to the fundamental laws of physics. It's an idea that's going to challenge us to think a little differently about both faith and science. Okay, let's get into it.
Everything kicks off with this one simple, powerful statement. Now, the source material we're looking at today says, hold on, this isn't just poetry. They're arguing this is a literal claim about the fundamental nature of reality itself.
And that's the big question, right? Is this just a symbolic comparison, like saying God is a fortress? Or is it an actual statement of identity, a claim about the very fabric of existence?
The argument we're exploring says this is not a comparison, it's an identity claim. The text doesn't say God is like light, it says God is light, meaning the actual nature of God and the actual nature of light are one and the same. So when you hear God is light, according to this view, you're hearing what's called an ontological claim. It's a profound statement about the very structure of reality. The takeaway is pretty wild. It's not poetry, it's physics.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. We're going to see how fundamental physics is used to build this argument. This is where the theology and, believe it or not, thermodynamics collide.
The logic follows a really clear, deductive path. You can see it laid out right here. It starts with that scriptural premise, God is light. It moves to the physics, light is a form of energy. Then it applies a universal law, energy is eternal. And it lands on the theological conclusion, therefore, God must be eternal. So this law is absolutely crucial. If we accept the premise that God is light, and we know from science that light is a form of energy, well then according to the laws of physics, light itself is uncreated and indestructible. It is eternal.
And Einstein's famous equation really brings this home. Every single bit of mass and energy in our entire universe is connected by this one unwavering constant, the speed of light. The suggestion here is that this isn't just an equation on a chalkboard, it's the blueprint for the structure of the universe itself. Okay, so if we run with this physical framework for a minute, how does it change the way we read some really key scriptural passages? Let's take a look. From this perspective, that famous line from Genesis, "Let there be light," isn't about God creating light like a magic trick, out of thin air. Instead, it's about the eternal, uncreated reality of light being manifested or expressed into our visible world. And it's the same idea for the term firstborn. It gets reinterpreted. It doesn't mean the first thing to be made, but rather the primary manifestation or the first self-expression of the eternal within this created system we call the universe. This quote just summarizes the idea perfectly. Creation isn't seen as an act of making something from scratch, but as an act of revelation, the Eternal One appearing in a new form. Of course, an unconventional argument like this is going to raise a lot of questions, and the viewpoint we're exploring actually anticipates and addresses them head-on. This is a big one. You might be thinking, okay, if God is a physical thing like light, wouldn't he be bound by the same laws of decay and entropy that govern everything else? And that is a really fair question. But the counterargument is, well, it's fascinating. It all comes down to the physics of relativity. See, from its own frame of reference, a photon, a particle of light, doesn't experience the passage of time at all. And if you don't experience time, you can't be subject to time-based laws like entropy. In other words, light literally doesn't age. Okay, so here's the next big challenge. If God is expressed as the fabric of the universe, does that just make this another flavor of pantheism? The belief that the universe itself is God?
A very sharp distinction is made here. The argument is that the universe is a structured expression of God, but it is not God himself. Think of it this way. A sentence is an expression of a speaker, but it isn't the speaker. The universe depends on God, but it is not identical to him.
And what about miracles? This is a tough one. If the laws of physics are an expression of God's own consistent nature, how can something like walking on water happen? Does God have to contradict himself to perform a miracle?
The proposed answer is that miracles aren't a contradiction of God's nature at all. Instead, they're a fuller, higher-order expression of it. They don't break the law. They just reveal a deeper dimension of the lawgiver that we don't typically get to see.
So, what's the point? Well, all of these ideas, the physics, the reinterpreted scripture, the answers to the big objections, they all lead toward a single, unified picture of reality.
This model actually reframes the word universe by taking it back to its literal roots, universe, which means a single spoken sentence. It suggests that all of reality is one coherent expression, coming from one source and operating under one consistent set of laws. So, what should you take away from all this? Well, it's a framework where physics isn't in conflict with Scripture. Instead, physics becomes the very language that describes its foundational claims. It offers a model where you don't have to choose between a rational universe and a meaningful one. They might just be the same thing.
And that leaves us with one final big question to ponder. If all of reality, from the first law of thermodynamics all the way to the first chapter of Genesis, is one coherent statement, what exactly is the message? Now that's something to think about.